To point out to you, that's what our tech, I mean, I come at it from a ground up basis from the realtor community. That's what we've done. Your comments is what, how do we keep our clients out of jail? How do we make them money? And those two are not, they're not mutually exclusive, because you're doing it, there's crossover there. That's what we've done. So, I mean, there are solutions out there. It's just finding that right solution, and whether NAR does incorporate something or you find a local or national platform that can serve your members. We're reaching out. We're doing a lot of work with boards, especially in Florida and now in other parts of the country, where we are providing that capability to the boards to help their members.
Anyone on this panel, I think, would be willing to come to your area in particular, on their own nickel and help, to the extent. Well, I mean, we're doing this out of passion, so we're, it's passion. I mean, I have 2 kids, and I want to make sure that I leave them the same kind of country that my grandparents left me. That's why I'm here today. So, but you raised an actually really interesting issue, which is probably the biggest problem we have. Because how many of you know of empty houses or houses in foreclosure that no one's buying? All of us. Look at the inventory. And how many of you know of investors? I mean, I get calls from investors who want to buy 10,000 homes in Florida, and they can't find them because they're stuck in the foreclosure process. And how many people need affordable housing? We were talking yesterday, I think, Robin, about the vets. The homeless vets needing a place to live. We've got the square pegs and the round holes all over the place. We just don't have the mechanisms to efficiently put them together in big numbers, and that's the problem.
We have time for 1 or 2 more questions. I'm going to ask one to the panel. Could you talk a little, Shari, you had a slide that just sort of struck me about the 3 different groups of people. I'm going to ask a question that's going to be it's difficult to quantify, but I'm just going to ask your expertise to quantify it. You said there was a group that needs help, and you can fix their problem with some work. There's a group that's beyond the point of no return, and that there's a third group of bad actors who are just willing to game the system. I know that's difficult to quantify, but if you have, given your expertise, if you could try, what percentage is fixable problems, no return problems, and bad actors gaming the system?
Here's the biggest problem, not to not answer your question and cause another problem. It changes every day. Because this started as a problem. I don't know if you all remember when Hillary Clinton was running for president, and one of the things that she talked about, which her not winning was one of the biggest travesties of my decade, thank you, but one of the things she's talked about was freezing interest rates on those subprime loans that were resetting, and everyone was against that because it was so un-American. Who ever heard of that? Well, now that would have really solved the problem. That was a great solution back then if it had happened quickly. Same thing with the HAMP modification. If that had been rolled out quickly at the right time, maybe we could have nipped this in the bud, but to still be talking about modifications now, 3 years later, is ridiculous because it's so far beyond that. The problem is evolving, and those buckets of people are evolving because of the adverse feedback. So the more people grow underwater, for example, in Florida, we're looking at 50% of the people are underwater, people with mortgages. So the more people grow underwater, the more people you have who are in that bucket of, maybe potentially milking the system because they're underwater. They can afford their mortgage, right? It's not a situation like that, but they don't want to pay it. So I have faith in humankind. I think most people really do need the help. I don't think there are a lot of people milking the system. The problem is I don't think we can help as many of the people as who would like it. So I think that the number of people who need help, who we really can help with these answers, is probably the smallest number.
From a transactional basis, I mean, look, there's 4 or 5 million problems. We've touched maybe 3% as a company. I would put the vast majority of those that are beyond any help because of whatever financial issues. We're starting to see a growing trend of those that can pay that don't want to pay. We really are not that involved in that first bucket, but most of those people in the first bucket within 6 to 18 months end up in the second bucket. So the middle bucket beyond is really where the vast majority of people are, regardless of circumstance. It's the third bucket that really makes me nervous, because if people are walking, even though they can afford because it's purely an investment decision, then we have the moral hazard issue becomes very significant, and that's where we're going to see a collapse significant in the real estate market.
Last question.
Okay. The income tax implications of foreclosure and forgiven debt being taxable. On one hand, that's a disincentive for their attitude towards foreclosures. On the other hand, we have the foreclosure society ending up with these huge income tax bills. Do you see any changes on the horizon for that situation?
One of the things that I think is important is trying to put an end to this situation. I mean, we want people to be able to put this behind them. If you go into foreclosure, it's an unhappy circumstance, but the benefit is at least you get to get on with your life. So having a big IRS bill hanging over your head is not a good thing. It's not going to help any of us, for that to happen. The other piece that we've been talking about a lot is the deficiency judgments, because in those states that are recourse states, people don't realize that banks are going after people for deficiency judgments now. They've never done it before, but we've got a cottage industry of attorneys who are going and willing to do that on a contingency fee basis, and they're doing it not only for the mortgages, but also for the association assessments. I got a call from a former babysitter the other day who was hysterical because she had walked away from a condo and thought everything was fine, and 3 years later with her new baby, all of a sudden she's getting pursued for the deficiency judgment. We'd never seen that before, and I love this story. One of the banks, I do a lot of work for BB&T, and one of the guys there told me, who'd been in mortgages forever, he said, my first day at a job, my last job, which was about 10 or 15 years ago, he said, I walked into my office, and lo and behold, my predecessor had left on the floor this box of final judgments. And I picked up the phone, and I called one of the debt collection or debt purchasing companies that I work with, and I sold it to them for $300,000 or $400,000. So my first day on the work, I made $400,000 to the bottom line for my bank. And I'm thinking, there were hundreds of lives in that box that in one phone call you destroyed. Now in Florida, banks can come after you for 20 years for your deficiency judgments. In other states it's different, but that goes to the Mortgage Debt Forgiveness Act, which I think expires in another year or two unless it's extended. But I personally think there's a benefit to allowing people who are at least are going to get past this travesty in their life to get on with their life with a clean slate. And to all of us, there's a benefit to that. And just get this whole thing behind us.
Can I add one thing? I think that you as with your members, one thing you have to be very clear, and again, it depends on the state you're in. People worry about a potential tax issue with a short sale. Well, if it goes to foreclosure, it's an automatic judgment. They're chased for 20 years. So this issue of walking away, nothing's going to happen to me. In certain states, that may be the case. But even like in California, if you refinanced or you took a HELOC after you bought the property, you're facing deficiency issues. So you go to foreclosure, people seem to have this perception that a foreclosure means you're done, there's nothing going to happen. It's an automatic, they're going to chase you for 20 years and they will do it. At least with the short sale or a negotiated transaction with the bank, you have the ability to mitigate and to quantify what that risk is and whether they have a right to pursue or they ask for a note or they want a cash contribution. The beauty of the negotiated exit pre-foreclosure is that you cap your losses. You borrowed the money, the market went against you, you lost your job, there's problems, let's solve it. Walking away only means they're going to be worse for you. So by working these deals through, in our viewpoint, our corporate viewpoint is the worst short sale is still better than the best foreclosure. So you guys got to take that into the mindset of within the guidelines of the rules of the law with bankruptcy and other things that you can look at, getting these deals done is going to be the best solution for your homeowners.